So before we get into solving quadratic equations, we want to talk about factoring. So we're going to take some time here to review the different factoring techniques. So we'll first start off with getting the greatest common factor and factor by grouping. Factor out the greatest common factor. The greatest common factor, GCF of polynomial, is an expression of the highest degree that divides evenly into each term of the polynomial. So for example, it says find the GCF of 12x to the fifth plus 18x to the fourth minus 24x cubed. To find the greatest common factor, we can list the factors of each term and identify the common factors. Notice that each term has common factors of 2, 3, and 3 factors of x, if we break it down. And kind of a tip to find the GCF, list the factors that appear in all the terms and then choose the lowest power of the respective factor. So even though, like for example, I see 5x is here, 4x is here, 3x is here, I'm going to choose the lowest power. And that's going to be my GCF. So factor out the GCF, we use the distributive property. We put that greatest common factor out first, 6x cubed. To figure out what goes inside, I take 12x to the fifth divided by 6x cubed. Gives me 2x squared. Then I take the 18x to the fourth divided by 6x cubed. That gives me my 3x. And then negative 24x cubed divided by 6x cubed gives me minus 4. So we put our greatest common factor, and what I like to call here is my leftovers. So let's see how this works. So for number one, we just want a factor, so we're going to be factoring out the greatest common factor. And if we look at this, looking at 8, 20, 12, and 20, the greatest common factor for the numbers is going to be a 4. And then I have an x in all of them, so I choose the lowest power, x cubed. So I'm going to rewrite that 4x cubed in front. And now I need to get my leftovers. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take my 8x to the eighth, divide by 4x cubed. 8 divided by 4 is 2. X to the eighth divided by x cubed, subtract the powers, that's x to the fifth. And now I'm going to move on to the next term, negative 20x to the sixth. Negative 20 divided by 4 is negative 5. Subtract the exponents, x cubed. Negative 12 divided by 4 is negative 3. Subtract the exponents, that's going to be a factor of x. And for the last one, negative 20x cubed divided by 4x cubed, that gives me a negative 5. And so that would be my answer. Let's try number 2. Here, my GCF. Well, we first look at the numbers. Well, we have a 1 here, all right, so coefficient is going to be 1. And now let's look at, we have a y in all the terms. Lowest power is the first power, so I'm just going to put a factor of y. And same thing for the n's. They appear in all the terms, but the lowest power is going to be factor of n. So I'm just factoring out a yn. So here I subtract the exponents. 3 minus 1 is 2, so that's y squared. N's divide out. Minus 13. Y's divide out. Subtract the exponents. 3 minus 1 is 2. Subtract. 5 minus 1 is 4. 7 minus 1 is 6. And I didn't leave myself quite enough room there. On the last one, subtract the exponents, that'd be y squared. 3 minus 1 is 2. And so made a mistake here. Let's double check them. Right here, this should have been 3 minus 1. That should have been n squared. Sorry for the error. It's always a good idea to go back and double check all of you. Make sure you have all your exponents correct. All right, let's try this next one. So if I first look at, and I'm gonna modify this one just slightly. I'm gonna add a w here, just to make it a little bit more interesting. And part of that is just want to illustrate something. When I'm looking at my greatest common factor, first I look at 30 and 12. That's going to be 6. I have an x in both terms. Lowest power is 4. I have a y in both terms. Lowest power is 3. I have a z in both terms. Lowest power is 2. I only have a w in this term, so it does not get on my list. It has to be in all the terms. So my greatest common factor would be 6x to the fourth y cubed z squared. So that we go put that out in front. And then we have to get our leftovers. So 30 divided by 6 is 5. X4 is divided out. 6 minus 3 is 3. Z squared is divided out. Let's move on to the next term. 12 divided by 6 is 2. 7 minus 4 is 3, so that's x cubed. The y the third is divided out. Z the fourth minus z squared is z squared. And then I'm going to have this w coming along for the ride. Now when we're doing this greatest common factor, if the first term is negative, we usually factor out a negative common factor or just a negative 1, just depending on the problem. So for instance, I see that these folks have a common factor of 3, but I'm going to factor out a negative 3. So that's going to be my greatest common factor. And we're going to see why that's important later. Negative 3 divided by negative 3 is positive 1, so we're just going to write x squared. 12 divided by negative 3 is a negative 4x. Negative 18 divided by negative 3 is positive 6. And so that would be your answer. Look at 8, 9, 3. So in terms of the numbers, the greatest common factor is 1. However, each term has a y, so we're going to factor out a negative y. So that becomes a positive 8y cubed minus 9y squared plus 3y minus 18. And keep in mind, if you always want to double check, just distribute that negative y to all the terms. Make sure it matches what you have up here. Now number 6 is interesting. And the way to look at this is you look at this. Those things have a common factor of 2x plus 3. So I want to factor that out. That's going to be my greatest common factor. So I'm going to put that out in front. My leftovers here are going to be this 5x and this minus 2. So I'm going to rewrite that as 5x minus 2 as my leftovers. So we get 2x plus 3 in parentheses times 5x minus 2. Now here's a situation where they're almost the same. Look at that y minus 3 and 3 minus y, and they're just reminding you, hey, b minus a is the same thing as negative a minus b. So what I could do here as a first step is I could go ahead and rewrite this as a negative out in front. So I'm going to put the negative out in front of the 4c. And then this becomes a y minus 3. Just using this property right here. So now looking at my greatest common factor, not only do I have the y minus 3, but look at the 2 and the 4. They have a common factor of 2. So my GCF here is going to be 2 times y minus 3. And I'm going to gather my leftovers. So I just get an x for that first term. For the second one, 4 divided by 2, that is 2, so that's going to be minus 2c. Just bring down the c. And then that would be our answer. So, and this type of thing is going to lead us into the next section where we're going to talk about factor by grouping.